I've always fallen in love with people who hated themselves. I even got this tattoo that kind of signifies my experience with love. I really wanted to understand these people and I wanted to help. I struggled a lot for a very long time because I feel like I have to get involved with other people. I have to hook my little tentacles up to them and just download all of the emotional information that I can get about their situation, go through it with them, and then help them find a solution. But that's not really how life works. You can't just solve another person's problems for them. One of the biggest problems empaths face is getting too enmeshed or entangled. There's nothing wrong with building intimate connections with people, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to help people, but that help should never come at the cost of your own mental and emotional state. So in this video, I wanted to share with you how to empathize without getting emotionally involved, because this is something I struggled with a lot. So number one, help people that actually want your help. I was doing my coaching certification program and they said a lot of people, you might want to help them, but they might not see what they're going through as a problem that needs fixing. People are genuinely struggling and just don't have the awareness. There are many people in this ignorance who have developed victim narratives because their pain is giving them this payoff. They're getting a payoff. Maybe it's social validation, maybe it's pity from others, an ability to identify with something and to feel like they have an ego, a narrative that they can live in. They don't see themselves as struggling with anything. They just see this as who they are. So avoid trying to help people who don't want help. Ultimately, you can't help somebody who doesn't want to help themselves. Then you're just, you're doing it for selfish reasons. You're doing it because you want a project or because you want like the gratification of solving something. Some of us like projects, especially like highly intellectual, high achieving women. We want to be able to say, oh, I nurtured that thing back into a functioning state. A lot of us want to mother something into being. There are other ways to get that satisfied feeling. Get some coaching clients. Maybe you want to go to grad school and get your LPC and do counseling because there's a lot of need for that right now. So if you want to do that, you should do it. Stop trying to help people that don't want help. You can't care more about someone else's success than they care about their own success, because if you're more emotionally invested in that person's journey, that's a very big sign that you're in it for the wrong reasons. This leads me to point number 2, which is conflict of interest. Do some introspection. Ask yourself, why do you actually care about this person's situation in the first place? It was really a twisted way that I was trying to establish trust with these individuals. And so I just kind of validated all of their wrong thinking patterns, and that came at the cost of my own mindset. If it's love that you're after, avoid treating it like a business transaction. If I invest time and energy into building a relationship with this person, they're going to do the same for me. A lot of times with people who are really seriously struggling with trauma or chaos in their life, they're not necessarily going to have the emotional availability or the mental clarity to realize that that's what you want. Don't get your needs tied up into that person's struggle, because chances are they're not going to be able to repay the debt. If you really want to help people, you have to take on a servant mentality. Giving with no expectation of anything in return. Loving for the sake of loving. Loving for the experience of loving. I love love in itself. I love showing love. I love giving love, and not necessarily expecting to receive in the same way from that other person. My third hack for this is know thyself. Our brain is a world building machine. Dr. Andrew Gallimore said that. And it takes in sensory input and generates a model of reality, a graphic user interface, so to speak, that helps us navigate through the third dimension. A person's reality is made up of all of these thoughts, feelings, beliefs, social constructs, meanings, stories, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of baggage that comes with any singular reality or any mindset or any belief system, right? So when you validate another person, it's the same as saying that is real. So you have to be a little careful with this, because when you get pulled into someone else's world, and especially if you're a hardcore empath like me, what can happen is you start to actually experience what they're experiencing. You start to have the thoughts that they would have. You start to sound like them in your head when you talk to yourself. You really have to make sure you have a strong foundation of beliefs, and you know who you are and you know what you want, and you're not going to be swayed when another person starts telling you about the rules of their reality, the laws of their universe. When you don't have a clear definition of yourself and you don't know who you are, you don't know what your purpose is in the world, you're very susceptible to suggestions from other people. Seriously, take some time to consider who you are and what you want and the purpose you want to fulfill on this planet. My fourth and final tip is to to practice detachment. This is not easy to do when you're first starting out. When I was starting my spiritual journey or my awakening, I basically had to rewire my brain completely because I was prone to obsessions like hyperfixation. I would ruminate in things I couldn't control, the past, the future. A lot of times there's a fear behind it. If I stop trying to control things, then things are going to get out of control. And that's like a black and white way of thinking. That's an all or nothing way of thinking. When you were a child, you were completely detached because you didn't know anything. That's where the fear of detachment really comes from for me. Is like there were times where I did let go and XYZ happened. And so that's why I will never let go ever again. It's really weird how the universe works, the backwards law. If you want something too much, you're pushing it away. And if you let go of it, it gets closer. So if you want a person to change, if you want a person to realize something that you've been telling them for years and years and years and they're just not getting it, try just letting go. Try just saying, you know what, they're in God's hands. It's not about your definition of right and wrong, good or bad, up and down, left, right. It's really about that person finding what's right for them and taking the action that is aligned with what God has in store for them. You have to detach from the outcome that you personally think is best for their lives or what worked for you and accept that like those things may not resonate with that person. So here's some of the tips that I have from like doing this, struggling with this for many years and finally finding a way of balancing, wanting to empathize and emotionally validate another individual, but also wanting to maintain my energy and emotional state. The reality is you are a better help to them when you are uncompromised. You're a better help to other people when you actually are stable in yourself because you can act as the light at the end of the tunnel that shows this other person that there's another way of being, that there's another way of living, and that their situation doesn't have to be the only situation.